Obito Uchiha, a man concealed under the alias of Madara Uchiha, the most dangerous shinobi since Madara himself. Obito battled against Minato Namikaze, the 4th Hokage, and one of the fastest ninja to ever live. However, Minato would die following their bout, and Obito would go on to slaughter Konoha's Uchiha clan. However, what if another shinobi, perhaps one who also held the title of the fastest shinobi alive, Shisui Uchiha, was there to stop Obito? Well, today we will be going in depth on what if Shisui didn't die to Danzo and instead fought Obito during the massacre, presuming that Itachi isn't helping Obito, obviously, which is interesting as Itachi does state that he's sure if Shisui was alive, he would have protected the clan to the very end, even from Itachi. Both want to beat each other, with Obito's goal to kill Shisui and Shisui's goal to force Obito to retreat or potentially kill him as well. Both characters will be at full power, and we'll just say that Shisui found him killing in the compound and battled him on sight. So yeah, let's jump straight into what would happen. Beginning the video, I think the most crucial aspect is where these characters actually scale to around this time. For Obito, in contrast to popular belief, there isn't really any evidence that he got stronger in the years following the Nine Tails attack. However, when I say there also isn't evidence supporting that he did get stronger, so for what we know, this Obito during the massacre is just some level unquantifiably around the Yellow Mask Obito that battled the 4th Hokage, Minato. Now, that fight in terms of how relative they truly are is very misconstrued, so let's talk about that, as I do believe Minato will come up for Shisui as well in terms of speed scaling. But the initial encounter begins with a fatigued Minato standing atop his Hokage rock statue, to which he reflects a full Nine-Tails Bishu bomb with the Flying Thunder God Guiding Thunder. Minato by this point has used several Flying Raijins, the Guiding Thunder, and has been mentally tanking with Kurama for at least hours on end. Then, after deflecting the blast, Obito materializes behind Minato, to which Minato notices him and swings his kunai through Obito's head, and I mean in a backhand motion, I guess, but then he immediately goes through and Obito catches his hand. Many people are very quick to note that Obito either outsped or is relative to Minato here, which is kind of disingenuous, as we know that Minato doesn't know the caliber of who this man is, much less that he is the most dangerous shinobi since Madara. So Minato could have been holding back, but then his kunai reached Obito's head, so similarly to how, a punch would work, you kind of stop it after it hits them. So Minato could have began to slow as you naturally would, or he just noticed his hand went through, began to slow and disregarded Obito's right hand, as Obito is already phasing through his attack prior, which is consistent theme about this bout, is Minato doesn't quite understand Kamui. Minato doesn't understand Kamui, and then Obito begins to suck Minato into the dimension, and Minato just kind of teleports out, reacting to Obito. Still, though Obito does react to this, Minato even notes that he will take him in quicker next time, implying that he probably wasn't going all out in terms of speed, or at least in terms of the speed of the Kamui transfer. Minato then flies away and notes how spooky the masked man's ability is, saying he got past the barrier, controlled Kurama, and uses teleportation, then questions if he is Madara Uchiha himself. However, Minato then drops the idea as he begins to sweat, stating that it's his teleportation ninjutsu that is so dangerous. It even surpasses both his and the 2nd Hokage's. So, pay attention to what Minato does from here on out. He notes that if he's like Madara, he'll want a quick fight. Then they both charge and Minato gets caught in the chains and furthers his idea of how the phasing works. Then he just notes that he can attack when he's not phasing, so he needs to aim for a mutual strike and it will all be over in an instant. They then charge at full speed with Minato holding back, as we know he also throws a kunai and is charging her Sengon, then beats Obito. So when saying that this Obito is equals to Minato, or even dare I say greater than Minato, is just wrong. With that being said, what could be noted is that at least they are on the same tier of power and Obito is able to, react to him and what have you. Moreover, before addressing where Shisui scales in relation to Minato, let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room, Danzo Shimura. Now, obviously, if Danzo was able to truly blitz Shisui, then I wouldn't even say that he's comparable to Minato. However, we know that Shisui is far above Danzo. The novel continuity is both the most consistent and generous to Shisui, as we can see that before interacting with Danzo, Suguru Aburame has paralytically poisoned Shisui to where he could barely move, hence to why Danzo is able to steal his eye. However, what if I told you this poisoned Shisui still blitzed that Danzo? Well, you'll notice that when Shisui attempts to escape, he uses his notorious body flicker in which Danzo can't even perceive him. Now, you may be saying, well, Virtue, isn't that what body flicker is? Just ridiculous movement via channeling chakra? Well, yeah. It kind of is. It's just channeling chakra to your feet to create an invisible leap, I guess. However, every time Shisui uses body flicker, he also uses a right hand tiger sign, similar to most people, meaning that he was able to draw that up without Danzo even perceiving it. Danzo at this point would suck though, right? Well, yes, but not in his left eye's perception, as we know that's what's important, and just stay with me. So essentially, we know that chakra is used very quickly when an ocular jutsu is active, and for those who lack an Uchiha body, this is even more prevalent. Take Kakashi for example. He constantly has lower chakra reserves than the rest of his body since his right eye is taking so much of that chakra. We know that loss in chakra also causes slowness and fatigue, so imagine Danzo with not just one, but over a dozen Sharingan pulling from his reserves. So his left eye's perception would actually be greater than his left eye's perception that was able to track peak Kage Summit Sasuke. Not just this, but even in terms of raw movement speed, Danzo was relative to Sasuke, with the chapter synopsis statement claiming that they actually pierced each other at the same time. So that means that Danzo's perception would be obviously a blitz level above this, or this Sasuke I guess, and Shisui would be a blitz level above that perception. So Shisui is logically blitz levels above Kage Summit Sasuke. If you want a more in-depth analysis on this argument, check out my How Strong is Shisui video, which I kind of go into, and that will be in the description. So where is this though in relation to someone like the 4th Hokage, to where Obito compares to? Well, Shisui unironically also doesn't just pale in comparison to Minato, as Yashiro Uchiha believes that Shisui is actually the greatest ever at body flicker, hence to his nickname. I will say, however, that Yashiro can be biased in some regards, like towards Fugaku and his right to the title of 4th Hokage and whatnot. However, there is some room for some credence, as in Fugaku's bias, we can see that Fugaku was blatantly inferior to Minato, as Hiruzen did like the Uchiha, yet chose Minato as a right-hand man instead. In Shisui's case, however, his body flicker is ridiculous and doesn't really have any anti-feats at all. Firstly, in terms of raw scaling, Shisui can be scaled to a blitz level superior to Kage Summit Sasuke, but let's look at this. So we have this peak Kage Summit Sasuke level combatant with a body flicker considered to be the fastest ever. Shisui's body flicker was so good that Ao, a Kage's guard, was still scared years later after his death. Shisui was nicknamed Shisui the Teleporter, and Shisui was even so talented that he could in fact produce after images as a child. With that, considering we never saw Shisui actually fight, all we know is that his body flicker is peak level and has no anti-feats. This also isn't even counting how his Sharingan, especially one as adept as his, would help him perceive his movements and such high movements, such as, maybe if he actually did have the fastest body flicker ever. But is he the best ever? Well, maybe. Funnily enough, the only other contender for this would be Minato, as the 4th databook puts it, praised among all ninja as the greatest in godlike speed. So considering Yashiro isn't an objective narrator, he would also have to be basing this off of something. So either rumors of Minato, or maybe seeing Jonin and Minato fight. Either way, a prime Shisui having a body flicker this speed is probably consistent, just potentially not as fast in reaction speed or combat speed as Minato, or maybe he's still just in Minato's tier but not quite equal or superior, as the 4th Hokage was able to outspeed every Hokage to the battlefield. So see where I'm going with this? At peak speeds, both Obito and Shisui have relative placements in regards to Minato. This isn't all, however, as both characters also have similar lore implications, placing them around Itachi Uchiha during this time. For those who are unaware, Obito prior to the massacre would be approached by the young Itachi with a proposition. That being that Obito would help wipe out the Uchiha clan, he gets revenge, and Itachi will join the Akatsuki with the promise that Obito will never invade or bring harm to Sasuke. However, in this scene, Obito asked, "And what if I refuse? Could you kill me?" To which Itachi replied, "It's not a matter of if I can or not. I will kill you." Which a silence and aura of respect and acknowledgement filled the area. So this could certainly imply that during this time, Obito may still be above Itachi, but Itachi is still more than a worthy opponent for him and to battle with, as Obito does believe Itachi is more than capable of killing him, even with contingencies in that case, if that were to happen much later when Itachi was sick and nearly dying. So now, where does Shisui scale in relation to this Itachi? And it's kind of relying on what source you're taking. However, all of them have one thing in common: Shisui is superior to Itachi. For example, according to the Itachi Shinden novel, in their sparring with Shisui holding back the Mingekyo, they fought a total of 35 times, with the results being 24 wins for Shisui and only 11 for Itachi. Itachi also goes home to hone his fireball, and he notes he's finally achieved one, getting close to Shisui and Fugaku, which sort of alludes to Shisui's superiority as the top of the clan. The book also mentions how the Uchiha clan were confident that Shisui could break into Hiruzen's manor and sort of kidnap him without sounding any alarms, and potentially overpowering this more prime Hiruzen than the one that scales above the Sannin. However, Shisui would die prior to this plan coming to fruition, and they believe they could no longer do it, sort of implying that Itachi or Fugaku couldn't get in and out like that, or sort of of, keeping Shisui at the top of the clan from the novel's interpretation. This also shouldn't be a shocker, considering that Shisui was also so talented that he in fact gained Jonin status after a mere 4 years of being a shinobi, and was already placed in war as a captain of his own team, battling Kirigakure's Ao, so Shisui is certainly the strongest Uchiha at this point. So the game also shares a similar interpretation as well, with them also just stating that Shisui is the strongest of the whole clan. Now, the manga doesn't really have a take on this, potentially Itachi just noting Shisui's talent at most, but past that, there isn't really anything else. So yeah, the ideas are similar regardless of which canon you choose. With that being said, Shisui and Obito both scale above this Itachi tier, just slightly above him, so I think it's certainly safe to assume that Shisui and the masked man are very much in the same caliber of power. However, with this being said, how would these two individuals actually interact with one another, and more importantly, could Shisui actually force Obito to retreat or back off? Well, firstly, let's analyze why Obito retreating is pretty in character and what were the reasons the last time he did. Well, the most obvious example is the Minato fight. So in this fight, you'll notice that this is the fight in which Obito entered the fight way too arrogant. As I mentioned, he didn't even move at full speed to absorb Minato and was overconfident in himself. This led to him not analyzing Minato as hard as Minato analyzed him, which led to Obito nearly dying. This is when Obito probably realized he needs to be way more cautious than this, as that was just way too close, to which he then retreated. He also backed out of fighting the Edo Tensei Akatsuki and Madara, as that would have been far too close of a fight. He left the 5 Kage summit and retreated with Sasuke to prevent Sasuke from getting hurt. He then retreated again during the summit before Naruto and Sasuke would clash. So Obito in character does retreat to keep the Eye of the Moon plan safe. So I think the most likely case is Shisui's going to try to go full speed with Body Flicker and fail. We know he probably shouldn't be able to blitz through it, as Minato needed Flying Thunder God to do so, in which FTG is another speed technique that's stated in the second data book to be not even comparable to Body Flicker, so Shisui should learn that he can't just bypass Kamui through that. Based on his prodigious mind though, I wouldn't even doubt that if he were to, figure out Kamui and how it worked, at least to a similar level of how Minato did. With this, Shisui also has a few options to try to bypass it via slicing Obito's neck, use the Kotoamatsukami, or use the Susanoo. Firstly, I want to address that yes, the Susanoo was never actually shown in the manga, but we do know Kishimoto has published art, or an official art at that, with the Susanoo in it, such as the Naruto Top 99 artwork, which displays the lance drill in Shisui's hand, and even the Storm promotional guide stating 3 times that Kishimoto actually did, want this to be a thing, and even what Shisui's perfect Susanoo were to look like. So saying that he has it is certainly plausible, and probably likely, as there was never a reason for it to actually be shown in the manga. The game directors also make a few statements on their goals of these cutscenes, in which they state, quote, "These characters that are no longer existing anymore as of the latest episodes. We'd like to bring them back with new skills, new movements. First of all, we try to imagine what it would be like if they were still around at this moment. After that, we make a document and propose it to the original author Masashi Kishimoto. How to do the jutsu, how to do the movement, and of course we have communication between us, and after that Kishimoto sensei has to approve the original plan and movement. We then implement it into the games and put it into the games, so that is officially proved by Kishimoto sensei, and that is what the fans are actually looking for. If those characters no longer exist, this is what would happen if they did exist." End quote. This all sort of means that Kishimoto was in agreement that they still could have had more to show, and this is what they would have looked like if that were to happen. Now, apologies if this felt long-winded, I just felt I needed to explain why the Susanoo is not that far off from being canon. So, what can his Susanoo actually do? Well, the only time it's shown, Shisui is poisoned and paralyzed and just had his eye ripped out, and all he did was a continuous stream of lasers at the Foundation platoon. So you could potentially say that Shisui would just use them to pressure this and, pressure the Kamui maybe to utilize the Susanoo maybe more as a defense, which Obito doesn't really have any counters against unless you believe he could absorb the entire thing. So I will say that it kind of just really comes down to, could Shisui use the Kotoamatsukami and Genjutsu Obito? Kotoamatsukami is rather complicated. What I mean is, out during the summit is seemingly pretty familiar on how the jutsu works, yet when Itachi uses it, he states it has a 10-year cooldown period. However, for Danzo, this isn't the case. So let's analyze the differences in these two eyes. First one, Danzo states he can use it every few hours, and he uses it on Mifune without him knowing. However, once he makes note of it, he instantly breaks it. But in Itachi's case, there's a 10-year cooldown, and Itachi was well aware that he was under it, yet was never able to break it despite being far stronger than Mifune and possessing a Sharingan. Itachi states this is the strongest Genjutsu ever. You could even actually argue it's superior to the Infinite Tsukiyomi, as it can actually affect Edo Tenseis when the Infinite Tsukiyomi cannot. So this is a theory that Swag Kage brought up a few years ago, but I don't really think it's a theory, and I actually believe it's nearly fundamentally impossible for there not to be two separate abilities in each eye. So for some people, they note that they don't just have separate names and they're just both Koto, but I don't really think this is a good refutation, as Obito's two eyes are just Kamui, yet possess two similar fundamentals, but in just far different ways, which they can be used. So, same thing here with Shisui. The 10-year one was the one for the clan, so Shisui could certainly use the one, maybe the smaller version that Ao notes and that Mifune was put under. Either way, Obito's only real counter to this would just be Izanagi. This is sort of moot considering he would actually need to activate this prior to being caught under the jutsu, in which there isn't really any basis to suggest is probable. We also don't even know when Obito got the Izanagi Sharingan, as you could imply he actually got that from the Massacre. So yeah, Shisui definitely could win, either Kotoamatsukami win, maybe forcing Obito to either kill himself or retreat, or just force him to retreat via showing his Sharingan and what the Kotoamatsukami can do, maybe showing his, his Susanoo, whatnot. With all that being said, not a super long video, but I still did genuinely think this fight was pretty interesting just based on how closely these two fighters both scale. So I figured I would make a video explaining why it's more intriguing than you might have thought. Of course, I do have how strong videos on both of these characters, which will be linked in the description, but make sure to let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you guys think it's not so close, or maybe do you think, you just enjoy the longer content more than this? Either way, make sure to drop a comment letting me know, and as always, love you guys.